Hey Deckers, how's it going? So I'm doing a lot of pre-recorded episodes right now because of the nature of the job. Just check out the previous video and you'll see what I've been doing for a living, and it's a 7 day a week gig. So there you go. But for those of you guys new, welcome to the dark side of the room. I'm Solar Gray, the cinematic sorcerer, and I am coming to you from the living room of my childhood home because I I had to talk to you guys about some serious stuff. So, um I've been working in Hollywood, and every day I'm inundated with beautiful people. I mean, people that, let's face it, you look at these people and you're like, wow, winners of the genetic lottery, people who are at the gym every day, lots of that stuff. So I wanted to talk about comparisons because it brought to mind a lot of how seeing people that seem better off than I am make me feel. And then I start thinking about my interactions with people. Okay? So I want to talk a little bit about comparisons. All right. So I made some notes down here real quick. So if it doesn't seem like I'm so improvised, or I'm trying to keep this personal, but that kind of thing. But anyway, now when I was a teenager, um, I wasn't the smartest, or most handsome, or most stylish, or well dressed, or most popular. In fact, as a kid, up until God, my mid 20s, my mid 30s, I was teased just about every day for just about every single subject. I mean, I did not fit in. I might just give you guys some footage of where I grew up one of these days, but wasn't good at sports, couldn't dance very well, just all the things that made somebody popular and cool. That wasn't me. And it's not that I didn't try, but we didn't have the money for me to have the best clothes, or at least the clothes that were in style. This was way before FUBU. This was back in the days of cross colors, if you guys remember that stuff. And but we didn't have the money for that kind of stuff, and um, let alone with my mom being the sole, well, not the sole breadwinner per se, but the only person that had a regular job in a house with my brothers and my great grandparents and my mom and myself, and all the alcohol and drugs. I didn't have the best environment to learn how to maintain my clothes, the best hygiene. It was a mess. And with all that, throwing me out into the world with my peers didn't quite do very well. And I didn't exactly pick up on social cues because once you hit the bottom of the totem pole as a teenager or as a kid, at least in my area, it might be different for where you come from. But once you hit the bottom of the totem pole, there's no up from there. Even if I started dressing nice, I was still that kid who used to dress terrible, and that is still a point of ridicule. And where I grew up, it wasn't just teasing, it was teasing followed by being stoned. And I don't mean with weed, I mean actual rocks being chucked at my head, to being jumped and beaten up, and just it was a mess. And when folks keep you around to be a punching bag or to feel better about themselves, like if they come from abusive environments too, or their parents are actively on drugs or whatever, it's really hard to pick up on social cues when you don't do anything right. Because as long as someone feels that they're doing better than you, they have a leg to stand on in their own heads. And now this was coupled with the fact that I was a very sensitive kid. Okay, I loved PBS. All right, PBS was my jam. Reading Rainbow, Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, all of these wholesome things that taught about cooperation and nonviolence. Um, And that was tough during the gang war where violence was the first language. And I cried a lot because I was always in touch with my feelings. And I mean, I cried a lot, a whole lot, at the drop of like almost any hat. Like I was a serious crybaby. You know, we call that toxic masculinity today, where people make fun of that stuff. Give me a sec. But that was the environment I was in. So if I didn't have the best clothes and I was always crying and I wanted to handle things nonviolent and I wanted to be everybody's friend, yeah, that kind of made me a target, you know. And like I said, it doesn't make in for fitting in when you grow up somewhere where violence is a legitimate form of language and communication. You know, not when you grow up a lover, not a fighter. You know, so my edge growing up was magic. I had some magic. And with that magic, I cast a spell to make it so that if I couldn't get the majority of kids to like me, I would just get the most powerful ones to. Okay, so I had cast a spell on myself to make me likable to the kid who was the most popular. You know, I was the cool guy's best friend. And, you know, so it was always the cool guy would be able to stand up for me when the mob came through. And since nobody wanted to look bad to the cool guy or the cool girl, they would leave me alone if I had that other person speaking up for me, you know. And it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. It was my cousin for the longest time. She wasn't cool. She was dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And people knew it. You know, she would knife you. and it was appreciated. It really was appreciated. I guess that was my first taste of power. But the side effect was always being friends with the most popular kid. I had a reminder, a constant reminder of what I wasn't. You know, I wasn't hip. I wasn't talented as a rapper or as a dancer. I didn't listen to the right music. I had loads of talents. I was good with electronics. I knew magic. I was really good at mathematics. I could build just about anything. I could fix stuff. But none of that matters when you're in junior high or elementary school, you know, because if you're good at building something, well, somebody in the neighborhood's got an older brother, and then the floor gets raised and the floor gets lowered, the bar gets raised to where that idea of there's always a bigger fish, there's always somebody that's better. And again, being the kid that's on the bottom, if the most popular kid wasn't there, then there was no way I could be the one who could rise to the top. No way, because everyone was better than me. Like I said, this did a lot of stuff to my brain. Low self-esteem, definitely imposter syndrome. And this was a tough thing because comparing myself to the people that I was next to, the people who had more or better clothing or who came from better families, you know, it's one of these, I've worked very hard to cultivate talents. And I say talents because people have this idea that when you're talented, you're just born with it. You know, they don't look at the tens of thousands of hours that an artist practices sketching or the 8 hours a day that a magician practices palming a card, or in my case, the 10, 11 hours a day spent studying music, and the 14 or 15 hours a day studying electricity and magic and sociology and all these things. But yeah, but comparing myself to these people always made me feel really small. It took away my confidence because I don't know what confidence is. We're always told to have it. We're always told to be confident. But that's just like telling someone to be airborne? How do you go from where you are to being that thing? What is the route of becoming? I don't know. I really don't. And it didn't help that I was in environments that didn't foster growth. Okay. Now, I am a good studier. Okay. I study a lot of things. And that imposter syndrome, that feeling of smallness, it does make me work harder. It makes me study harder and practice more and learn more, because the environments that we're in have a tendency of making people, at least myself, feel like we don't measure up, like I don't measure up. This idea, well, here's like an example. I play the bass guitar. There's a video of me just futzing around, testing out a mic, over on another YouTube channel. And I'm okay. I think I'm okay. As far as garage band standards and playing clubs and stuff, I'm pretty good. However, I listen to Victor Wooten and Marcus Miller and Stanley Clark and Geddy Lee, and it's like the environments that I'm in are, they cultivate this environment where if you're not the best, if anyone can think of anything better than you, anyone better at a skill than you, then you or I am treated as though we are irrelevant. Like, yeah, you've worked really hard to become a good basketball player, but you're not Michael Jordan, therefore you're not good. You've worked your life to be an artist, but you're not Jim Lee, therefore you're garbage. There's no in between. There's no you're good too. There's no as well. And this is really unhealthy and phenomenally untrue. It is so untrue. Good is such a huge spectrum. Okay, pretty, attractive. All of these things are a spectrum of 100 different scales to quantify something on. And before I realized that, I had so many resentments toward others. As I was trying to make it as a musician, I met people whose parents were producers, who just knew more than me just from growing up in their houses, and I'd worked tirelessly. I literally sat in caves with borrowed bass guitars to practice my scales and to figure out how to use things that I later came to know as modes, MODES. And these are people that just had it. They were born into it. And I didn't have that privilege. They were better, and it seemed like no matter how much I worked, I couldn't measure up to them. And this was my fortune, and I'll explain why it was a fortune, to come across people that were born into these knowledges. In every field that I've been in, be it music, be it motion pictures and visual entertainment, be it art, be it science, I always end up meeting someone who was second, third, fourth generation in this field. And that being the case, their household was always based around those things, I have a friend who has a friend who's like Max Landis. And just growing up in the house with John Landis, the director of Trading Places, the guy who's responsible for us knowing who the hell Eddie Murphy is. Growing up in that house, you're going to get a lot more about the industry and the business just from dinner table knowledge and listening to your dad's phone calls than you're probably going to get if you're from my neck of the woods, with the only access to that world being what's on the TV. But that's a different thing. Now, this whole thing had to remind myself, I had to remind myself that we live in a time where everyone is made to feel small. Everyone. We're taught we're taught that we're not good enough. We're not good enough from the moment that we enter, I think about third grade. Then we have to study harder, play harder, be better at sports. Not to mention, we're inundated with advertisements that the ad industry has made hundreds of billions over the past 50 years telling us how our life sucks unless we buy this thing. You know? And that stuff can become just heavy, crushing. Hell, the internet is filled with people making demands, just demanding better quality content, better writing, higher production value. They want everything to be cinematic all the time. Because the internet, YouTube is like 13 or 14 years old. And yeah, we've got great tools, but those tools cost money. But people make demands. Will they throw in to buy the better cameras? Rarely. Will they take the time? Nope. They want the best. They want it now, and they want it for free. I mean, hell, even jobs. Jobs incentivize workers by telling them that they're not good enough. If you're knocking it out of the park at work, your boss doesn't say good job, congratulations. They say do more. Our shareholders demand more. Just do more. And this feeling of not enoughness is huge. It's huge, it's damaging. And why am I going on about this? Because I work in Hollywood right now. I can't take a coffee break without seeing people who have the financial resources to spend 5 hours a day in a gym getting ripped and cut, or taking bunches of acting classes, or wearing all this in fashion clothes to look the best and all that stuff. If you walk down Hollywood Boulevard or walk down Ventura Boulevard and the San Fernando Valley, you'll see loads of people in their expensive cars and their expensive clothes, all keeping up this facade that they've got everything together. And I'm calling it a facade because each one of those people are one paycheck away from total disaster too. And they live under that fear that somebody younger or prettier or just out of college that'll work for, do twice as much work as they do for half as much pay is going to come out. I mean, it's rough. Their livelihoods depend on whether or not they have the most modern cars and the most modern fashion. And I'm like, you guys are making $300,000 a year, but you're spending $200,000 a year on clothing and houses and stuff. You can't live simply with a higher tier career. It's just not allowed, And just like me, and probably like you, they spend so much time trying to make it that when they've made it, it doesn't feel like they made it, because all they can do is see how far they have to go. I tried putting together a previous video and the sound was terrible, but it was about beliefs. I'm going to record that again later. But we have this belief that when we succeed, when we're up there, when we're strong, we will feel like we're heroic. We'll feel like we've made it. We feel like we accomplished. And, we'll feel like heroes. But the fact of the matter is we never notice our own progress. There's huge parts of me that still feel like the 5'2" fat kid who's drunk and probably on some psychotropics, but I'm 6'4" and over 200 pounds. People are always asking me to lift stuff, and I'm like, why are you asking me? I'm not that strong, but quantifiably I am. We got a dude to be my backup at work, and this guy is just built. He's in really good shape, especially for a middle-aged man. He's in really good shape for a 20-something-year-old man. And I look at my pudgy little dad bod, and I'm looking at him, and then I realize, holy crap, I'm 6 inches taller than this dude. And that's the whole thing. I didn't recognize when I got tall. And most people don't realize when they become successful, when they make it. because we're taught so much to look at what we lack or how much farther we have to go. We're chasing that belief, that feeling that when we succeed, it'll all be okay. And that's not the truth of it. Okay? The truth of it is when you succeed, when you're doing amazing, it feels normal. Just normal. Now, when you're messing up, it kind of feels normal until you're yelled at, or when you just can't wrap your head around something. It's frustrating. But competence, success, and stabilized success feels like every day. I don't know why that is, but I have noticed that RPGs are great examples of this. I thought you guys thought I was going to try and avoid gaming, huh? No. You see, in an RPG, you start off at whatever your low level is. You're at first level, and in D20, you're at first level ranger or something like that, and you're all right. You're better than a townsfolk person, but really you're just out of boot camp, just out of college. You're new. You might feel like you can take on the world for a little while, then you get into your first fight with a giant spider, and you get wrecked. Or you get 2 or 3 goblins, and you get wrecked. You might be able to beat up townsfolk, but who would do that? They're evil characters. But you don't really feel that great because you get wrecked. And this is tabletop, or if you're playing video games, like you hop in a RPG like Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft or Overwatch or anything with a story mode. And in the beginning, you'll be like, yeah, that was kind of challenging, but blah, blah, blah. And then by the time you make it up to 15th or 16th level, all the fights still seem kind of samey. It feels like, wow, that was a little challenging, but I knew I was going to beat it, so boom. Or that was really challenging and I beat it, hooray, but everything else is kind of like, oh, God, one of these again. But if you go back to the beginning of the game, those beginning levels, like in Diablo, when you make it to level 15, and then you take that character and play on easy mode, you're just wiping through everything. Or you make it to level 15 and you go to the top of the dungeon where everything is respawned and you're just wiping through everything. And that's what we think feeling successful is like. But the thing is, when you're in it, when you're doing the day-to-day, we're so inundated with the difficulties of getting through today that we don't notice how far we've come. And this is why I decided to talk about this from the house I grew up in. Because I live in a better neighborhood. I live in a safer neighborhood. In fact, this neighborhood has improved by leaps and bounds from when I was a kid. Like, you can't hear helicopters or gunfire on the audio track on this. But even as I was recording this, 2 or 3 police SUVs literally drove by. Heck, when I showed up here last night, there were 2 police chases involving helicopters literally on the streets that I was driving, and no, they weren't looking for me. But the thing is, the truest thing of all this is I've come a long way. And most of you guys have come a long way. And if you haven't, you will. Okay? You really will. The thing is, none of us are the best. On YouTube, none of us are making PewDiePie's money. Very, very, very few of us are writers that are on the same level as Lindsay Ellis and Nerdwriter. And you know what? That's okay. As long as we're trying. When I teach, I tell my students, with anything I'm teaching them, primarily the physical stuff. So when I'm teaching dance or martial arts, when I have my students stretch, I tell them to concentrate on stretching maybe 3 inches further today than they did yesterday. Just 3 inches. Try for that 3 inches. Do your best to get to that 3 inches. Now, yesterday, my day at work was tough because I'd barely gotten any sleep. I did the best job that I could do. And I didn't mean I phoned it in, calling it my best. I put up maximum effort. And I'm saying this to illustrate that sometimes your best on Tuesday isn't as good as on Monday. But always do your best. And if you're doing your best to improve and your best to learn, you will progress. You will proceed. I know I have. Okay. And again, I'm able to record this video on the road and upload it to you guys and all that stuff while I'm working a second job. I wasn't able to do that, and I haven't been back to the Wizard's Tower for a couple of days now. So that's a huge thing. But comparing yourself to the people that are around you or the other people in your field, if you're doing it out of envy, the feeling that makes the little sister try and reach the doorknob that their older sister has reached, you know, that thing that says, that is my next goal. I want to go there. I want to be as good as Bob by the end of the year. And I'm going to find out how Bob did it, and I'm going to practice that. That's cool. But if comparing yourself to others makes you feel ugly or fat or incompetent or like a fraud, let it go. Put it aside. Realize that that person probably looks at you in the same way about something. They might admire your intelligence or your sense of humor or your comedic timing or just your insight. You know, they might admire something about you that you don't even know about because you don't live in their heads. And even if they don't, they probably have stuff that's weighing on them that's making them feel just as small, just like you, you know? So, in short, when you're using comparisons with other people, use them as the next milestones for what you're working for and not as a measurement to beat yourself up for what you haven't done or accomplished. You know, if you guys watch this channel, you're like me, and you weren't born into the best of circumstances. You weren't born into the Hollywood families or into the 1% or anything like that. And you know what? That's fine. In fact, you'll probably never be there. Okay? But what's important is to work toward getting better. Working toward arriving somewhere where you're happy. Okay? Not everybody wants to be a billionaire at their core. Most people just want to be fat and happy. You know, we just want to make sure that we have a place to live forever, food forever, and that we spend the majority of our days doing something that make us feel fulfilled as a person, be it YouTube videos or carpentry or acting or dancing or traveling the world or skydiving or doing halo jumps out of space shuttles, whatever, you know. But don't beat yourself up over where you come from or what you haven't accomplished yet. You know, life may be short, but the years are long, and you got time to get there. But with that, I gotta actually get to work, so I'll catch you guys later. I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer. Feel free to drop us an email over at, backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. Hit us up on the social medias, the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebook. You know, just look up BidP or BID_P, and you know, just drop us a line, send us your questions, your comments, and once we start going live again, feel free to tune in, and of course, join our Patreon. You know, we have tiers ranging from $1 a month to $100 a month, but the important thing on that is, even if it's as low as $1, you have access to all of our content. You can be in the live stream at certain levels. You know, you would actually be one of our guests, and it gives you, you know, access to polls and all that stuff. And again, we're having a contest, so you'll be able to get really cool looking stuff here. By subscribing and all that stuff. Once we hit our certain allotted numbers, there's going to be drawings, and people are going to get some free stuff. And we're not talking stickers and stuff. That's at the low tiers of the Patreon. We're talking really cool stuff that we're working really hard over here to make, and they're going to go up in our product store. So with that, I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying, if anybody tells you that you can't do what you do or like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender, identity, sexual orientation, your disability, or your budget, you just tell them to take those cards and put them back in the deck. And you keep doing what you're doing. Okay, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for tuning in to the dark side of the room.